Washington, D.C. is considered the center stage of world politics and a hotspot for cosmopolitan culture. But in recent years, rising violent crimes are starting to change its reputation. Our next guest grew up in a drug-infested area of Washington, D.C. While coping with alcoholic parents, he's also served time in prison. And as a former convict, he has now made it his life goal to fight and advocate for those who want to get back into society. I speak with Courtney Stewart. He's the founder and CEO of the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens here in Washington, D.C.
Courtney Stewart grew up facing challenging circumstances in Washington, D.C. He overcame incarceration and addiction. Now he's a passionate advocate for second chances. He founded the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens.
I think there's kind of this kind of view of Washington, D.C. as like this is a seat of power and elites and, you know, the buildings are so opulent. And that's true. That is a part of Washington. But then there's another part of Washington which we're familiar with. I mean, where people are really struggling. Describe the Washington that you grew up in, some of the challenges that you faced.
Yeah, that's a good question. The Washington that I grew up just east of the river. The things that east of the river hasn't changed that much, you know. I mean, and there's many things that was there that are still there today when I was a kid going to school. And that's the structure. It doesn't matter if it's the economics or the structure or the families that are growing up over in that neighborhood. You know, it's just been poor, and it's been poor for a long time, and it's still poor. You know, even though we've made some progress, but we've not made the progress that we can make. You know, I mean, we're talking about Washington, D.C., and if you compare the two, you can see the progression on this side of the river versus not much progression on that side of it. And so that's the difference between the haves and the have-nots.
What was that childhood like? I mean, how tough is it? You know, you're talking about poor neighborhoods, which in many cases are they're off in the distance for people who are living their usual lives, going about life. They may not see what's happening there. How would you paint that picture for them?
Well, it's, I mean, you don't know. I mean, like, so that's the thing about a child growing up in a poor neighborhood or any neighborhood. I mean, you don't have the answers to what is supposed to be going as it comes, right? So it's almost a normal existence, you know, whether it's a poor existence or not. So for me, I grew up with alcoholic parents, you know, so I kind of was forced. You know, I was like this smart kid, you know, and so I knew the difference between what our needs were and what my parents' responsibilities were. And so I used to have a lot of arguments with my parents at a young age, and eventually I did a lot of running away from home at a very, very early age. And so my upbringing was really tough, you know. I never had the keys to my home. I always had to knock on the door to get in. And so that affected me a lot. And as a result of that, I kind of was in the streets, you know. I did a lot of sleeping in the streets. I slept at bus stops. I slept at parking garages. I slept in gas station restrooms, you know, and I even slept right outside my doorstep, you know, in the hallway. So, but
you smile when you tell that story. There's a pain there.
Well, the story continues, you know. It continues, and it gets better.
Well, it takes a while. It takes a while to get to the smile and the laughter phase.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of pain.
I healed a lot, you know. I've done a lot of work on myself to this point. So you're gonna get a lot of smiling out of me. You know what I mean? I'm living a wonderful life, you know. So, but my childhood, I never forget where I come from. So you can ask me any question about my childhood, and I can give you direct answers about that.
Can you talk about the path that led to incarceration, and what?
All of it leads to incarceration. I mean, like, you know, because, you know, like I said, never, you know, my parents were alcoholic. My parents died of alcoholism. They, you know, at an early age, they were both in their 40s. But what led me into the criminal legal system was I was a foster kid. So, it started there. My foster parent was probably one of the worst foster parents on the planet. I mean, like, he had a lot of foster kids, but he was very irresponsible, and he didn't care. I guess he was getting a check from us or for us, and that was basically it. So I was on my own there, and I was with a bunch of men that was older than me. Actually, when I first went to foster care, I was 12 years old. And it was a bunch of men living there. So I learned about lying, stealing, and cheating right there within the foster home. And, you got to eat. Even as a child, when it's time to eat. When your belly is empty. And so I went on that. I started looking for things to so I could have some money in my pocket. And, that's eventually led me I first went to prison, or I first went to juvenile institution for not even a charge. It was, back then, it was beyond control. So, you could go to an institution if your parents said that you were beyond their control. So it's not like I committed a crime. No, I went there because my parents said I was beyond control.
How old were you then?
I was 9 years old. I first went to a place called Maple Glen in Laurel, Maryland. And I graduated. I went from Maple Glen to Cedar Knoll to Oak Hill, eventually to adult prison. Incarceration is not nothing to be played with. I mean, like, it's a total different world. Your life can change in a split second in incarceration, So you don't have no control once you are incarcerated. All your control is taken away from you. You don't have no choice either. So like, it's a very sickening and dangerous community, because, it's a self-governed community, and it's very violent. And so you have to be prepared for the unprepared, the things that you naturally can't be prepared for.
Racial disparity persists in the U.S. prison system. As of 2021, African Americans constitute about 33% of the overall prison population. This despite the fact that only 13% of the U.S. population is black.
It's a punitive system, right? And like we always, we kind of, it's learned behavior though. Like, it's this punitive behavior, this draconian type behavior is just learned behavior. And we need to undo it, If you look at the prison industrial complex, it's a $80 billion industry right now. And so that's a lot of money, and so you got a lot of people that's invested in that, and they don't want to give up their investment, but the collateral consequences of the prison industrial complex it's almost destroyed the black community. It has disenfranchised many of us. When you look at, we need to be thinking about alternatives to prison or some type of diversion program. If you look at our prison system, it's somewhere in the 80th percentile that most of those individuals are locked up for nonviolent offenses. So, if you look at that, that is a societal problem, and that's something that we can deal with nonviolent offenses, and we should be dealing with that, not the criminal legal, because you cannot punish your way out of that. I mean, like, and now you've seen the system has grown over the years, and you are worse off when you come out than you were when you went in. So why are we doing that? Why are we subscribing to that? Why are we paying $40,000 a year just for someone? We can take that money and invest that money into the poor neighborhoods, invest that into education, invest that into therapy.
The system itself, it seems pretty messed up too, right?
It starts with the people who run the system, and we can change whatever we want to change. It's just, we know that we are fighting some of the older conditions of slavery and racism in America. So these things have had a stranglehold on our society for a long time. And so, now a lot of this is visible, and, we are having conversations more. And so it's just time to do something different. It's time to reimagine all of this. And we have millions and millions of kids that's going to school that's dealing with the lack of, wondering whether or not they're going to end up in, some of the same jackpots, and so it's just time for us to really think about doing something about it.
Former convicts often face recidivism due to systemic challenges such as limited employment opportunities, securing stable homes, or the lack of access to education. More than 60% of incarcerated individuals do not possess a high school diploma.
Let me ask about returning to prison, because we see inmates who come out and then end up returning.
Yeah.
What's the solution?
I think it's a lot to learn, and we need to really listen to the people that's on the ground, the people that actually work with these, live in these communities from the similar experiences. I think that these individuals would be better suited and even more experienced with an answer for, And that's the reason why I started that work for Return to Citizen. I can share what I did. I've raised 4 kids, college. I've had 3 or 4 successful businesses. So, we can do a lot about recidivism. We just have to pay attention, listen, and put the right. I heard this from a colleague of mine. He talked about your computer being hacked. And the best way to fix a hacked computer is to go and get the people who hacked it in the first place. You see what I'm saying? With recidivism, really do something about people recommitting crimes, going back. Then let's get the experts have done it and changed their life around among us. Those individuals are best suited to support.
Even if they answer the question gingerly like yourself. let me ask a follow-up, which is voting. And yet there's been this debate, should people who are re-entering society have that right? And here in D.C., you've been instrumental in making sure that even people who are behind bars still have a voice.
Absolutely. I think that all our civil liberties, all our rights should be rightfully restored to us. Unless you have committed a heinous crime or you've done something that, our society would never deal with. But if you look at the prison industrial complex, most of the individuals that are in there for nonviolent crime. So we shouldn't just end their life. They have to work. You can't stop them. You shouldn't stop them from getting a job. You shouldn't stop them from having their liberties. They should have all their liberties. You're not stopping them from paying their fines. You're not stopping them from paying their restitution. You're not stopping them from paying child support. So why are you stopping them from voting?
The other thing is language, and one of the things that maybe you can talk a little bit about this is the language that we use. Returning citizen.
Sure.
It's got a nice ring to it. It's not a phrase that's been used a lot in my lifetime to describe you or others. It gives a sense of dignity. It describes somebody differently. It reframes the conversation. Can you talk to us about landing on those 2 words and what those 2 words mean to you and mean to others who are returning citizens?
There was a group of us that got together in D.C. And we put forth legislation before we recommended before the city council to change the name, because this was around the time, I think, when Martha Stewart went to prison. And we just, we know that if people keep calling us convicts and ex-offenders, ex-felons, that, we're going to be judged, continue to be judged that way. So yeah, we were, that term, it came from DC. We fought for that, and we eventually got it. And I remember, actually, because right after that, I started the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens. And no one wanted me to use those two words. They was like, what do you mean, returning citizens? Why do you want to use that? I mean, everybody is a citizen. Everybody is returning from somewhere. And it's just like change, like I stuck with it. I mean, most of my friends and music too, they didn't return a citizen on those two words. But I stayed with it. I ended up I used to be on Obama had a reentry council. I participated in that, and we pushed the words throughout the country, actually. And then eventually Obama said return a citizen.
And what's the feeling when you hear that?
I'm feeling it all over again right now. I was just so excited to hear my president say the term return a citizen. So that's near and dear. I mean, that is something that we crafted right here in the city of Washington.
Courtney has helped transform the lives of returning citizens by facilitating growth, family unification, job retention. He helps to foster a safe environment for individuals looking for second chances.
You must have success stories, but I imagine there's also, some that don't go the way you'd want. Talk to me about the ups and downs of a job like this, because it's not, there can be really high.
The numbers as they relate to returning citizens, they don't start out being good numbers, You're starting from probably not so good number, and that's why we have to improve the quality of life through having these conversations and being honest about what we're really, really dealing with, So, our numbers have been fair, I'm an advocate, so it's not really about me, it's about the truth with me. It's just that simple. Like, we're dealing with a population that has a slew of issues, I mean, it could be literacy issues, it could be abandonment issues, it could be mental health issues. It takes a lot to overcome that. So what we have learned to do is kind of slow everybody down, to a pace that we can make progress at, and that's including even the people who want to support us. We want to slow them down too, because reentry, it takes time, you know what I mean? You cannot, these individuals been away for a while. So to get them to understand what is being asked of them, you got to slow them down to a pace that they can really understand it, and then you can build from that.
It is an extraordinary journey. Thanks for sharing part of it with us. It's been a delight talking to you.
Thank you.